and I save them from these terrible, those not so good pineapples. Then I went to Sweden when my family were living there, and they have what they call bananas, that they are from Panama or something like that. You cannot compare those bananas with you people. You should give these people bananas. They see how bananas look like, taste like. The bogoya, mbariche bogoya one. Mandi badi muleta bogoya one abantu ne bali ya ne muri yawo mutudde butuzi. Mwambadde amakoti gemulese wano. Abantu bano bewunyisa. Now, then the fisheries. The fisheries, this fresh water has a lot of fish, different from the ocean fish, livestock, cattle. We've been keeping cows for a long, long time, chicken and so on. So therefore, the agriculture is an area where we can easily cooperate. But all this needs value addition. Because for these products, to get to the market, you need value addition to prolong their life and remove what is necessary to be removed. And some of the Chinese companies are cooperating with us in that effort, which is very good. And some of the Indian companies, we've got Indian companies which are working with us. Now, finally, all these products need market, because if you produce and nobody buys, then the business will not continue. As I speak today, there's a lot of milk. The internal market is not enough, because one of the problems of Africa, which you should know, is the fragmentation of the market. Africa is a huge continent with a population which is growing of 1.3 billion. It will be 2.5 billion in the next few years. But the problem has been that the market is fragmented because of the colonial fragmentation. We are solving this through economic integration. That's why we have formed the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, in order to solve the problem of market. But it is also good if we can sell to China or to third-party markets. That stimulates business. And we can produce more and more and more. But as I speak today, there's a lot of production of maize, of sugar, of milk, many products. Sometimes the price goes down because of limited market. But this will be solved if we sold more abroad or diversified the final products. Like for instance, if you say, when you take sugar, the Ugandans are now saying sugar is too much, but what they mean is that sugar for tea is the quantities are bigger than the internal market and the regional market. But then we also need sugar for industry, for mixing with beverages, which is still being imported. So that one will be sorted out. We need sugar for pharmaceuticals, for making syrups. That also will be. So broadening the spectrum of the final products also widens the market internally and regionally. But there's no doubt that we need access to the international markets as well. So I'm very glad to see that you are here. It is my pleasure to declare your conference opened. Thank you very much. Representative of the Secretary General of the UN, the Director General of the Department of Cooperation in the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, and all the delegates who are here. You're most welcome to Uganda. China and Africa have been cooperating ever since 1949, when the communists took power in China. The communists came with a new approach in world affairs. At that time, Africa was under colonialism. The Chinese Communist Party did not agree with colonialism. They therefore joined the Soviet Union in supporting the anti-colonial movement. Until the last African country was liberated. This was in 1994, when South Africa gained majority rule. So we are therefore very grateful to China for their support in the anti-colonial struggle. After liberation, the Chinese government has been cooperating with African governments in terms of development. They have even opened their market on preferential terms in some of the products. They have also been cooperating with us in the area of infrastructure development, and also in encouraging Chinese companies to come and invest in Africa, in Uganda. So again, we are very grateful to the Chinese government for those friendly actions. When it comes to agriculture, which is the topic of today, when you come to Uganda, you are in the right place, where crops grow easily than in many other parts of the world. Once I went to Sweden and I met the king of Sweden, who told me that a pine tree in Sweden takes 120 years to mature. Here in Uganda, a pine tree will be mature in 7 years. What takes the Swedish to grow a tree to maturity, for us it takes us 7 years, and by 15 years the pine tree is overgrown. Why is this? It is because of latitude and altitude. Latitude, we are right on the equator. When you landed at the airport where you landed, that's where the equator passes, on the southern end of the runway. Therefore, when the sun is going north, it passes over us. When it is going south, it passes over us. I hear that in other parts of the world, they never see the sun. The sun never passes over them. They just see it from an angle. Now, as you know, the movement of the sun is the one which triggers rain, formation of rain. When the sun is overhead, it warms the air, and according to physics, warm air is lighter than cold air. Cold air is heavier. So when the air here is warmed by the sun, it creates a low pressure area which attracts air mass from other parts to come in. And when it comes with the rain. So that's how we end up getting rain 2 times a year. We get rain 2 times a year. Therefore, since ancient times, even without irrigation, we can grow 2 crops in a year, depending on rain-fed agriculture. In other parts of the world, I hear they only have 1 crop in a year because of, with irrigation, you can have even 3 or 4 crops, depending on what you are growing. Therefore, and altitude is that we are right on the equator, but with a high altitude. There are only 3 parts of the globe which are like that. There's a part of Kenya which is right on the equator, but with a high altitude. And I hear of a country in South America, I have never been there, but I hear of it, called Ecuador, that it is also on the equator and with a high altitude. The 3rd point on the globe, which is like that, is Uganda. Now, being on the equator, And with a high altitude, it means that we have both the sun, but the sun is not too hot because of the altitude. That's how you get the temperatures outside. I don't know why these people put on air conditioning. They are just wasting your time. Outside, the temperature is normally 22 degrees, 28 degrees during the day. And in the night, it can go to 15 degrees. So it is always mild climate all the year round. Now that influences what we grow. On top of that, Uganda has got 40 million acres of arable land. And we have 43 billion cubic meters of free. And that's why growing crops is easy. Uganda is part of the Nile system. The water which flows out of Uganda in South Sudan at one point on the main channel of the Nile is 36 billion cubic meters of water per annum. However, in some of the years, it goes very high. Like in 1964, I think it went up to 60 billion cubic meters. So therefore, combining latitude, altitude, and water, Uganda is an ideal place for crops. But there's also the culture. We have got an ancient culture of agriculture here. In your literature, I see you talking about rice and things like that, which is good. Those are new crops. But these people also should tell you about the indigenous crops of this area, because they're actually more nutritious than some of those crops from outside. I don't know why they don't talk about it. They are selfish people. They don't tell you. Why don't you tell our friends about your crops? Because I don't see in the literature, you don't talk about it. Minister, olinetima kulwaki tembyogerako. Balinetima bano. I am 75 years old, but I don't have blood pressure. I don't have, what do you call it, sukari, diabetes. One of the reasons, of course, I have also got good genes. But I also eat our indigenous foods, bananas, cassava, millet. Millet is one of the richest foods. I'm glad there is a Chinese type of millet, which I saw in the literature. That should be interesting. I don't know how it is different from our indigenous millet. But our indigenous millet is very, very rich. It is one of the few cereals that has got protein, carbohydrate, and iron together in one cereal. Therefore, these people have an ancient history of agriculture with those indigenous crops, which we should promote and make available to the world. For instance, I hear that I don't eat bread. One of the foods I don't eat is bread. I don't eat bread. Because I heard that bread has, what do they call it? Gluten? Huh? That it has got gluten. And that gluten is not good for the body. But we don't eat bread. I don't eat bread indigenously, so I don't eat it. We have got very good starch from bananas, from cassava, from millet. So in the cooperation, I'm very grateful with the Chinese government. They introduced rice here after independence. We were not eating rice. It was a few Indian immigrants whom we would see eating rice. And we would say, what are these people eating? That was before independence. Then after independence, the Chinese government came and started a rice scheme. Now, Director General, one of the things I want to change, I don't like this swamp rice. Because swamp rice here is dangerous. Because they grow it in the Nile tributaries. What they call swamps are actually not swamps. They are tributaries of the Nile. They are branches of the Nile. So they dry those branches, and I want to stop it. So what I like, I don't know this rice you are talking about, whether it can grow on dry land or irrigated land. I don't mind irrigation, but I don't like growing rice in the swamp. It's very dangerous for the environment. But if we can pull the water from the river and you grow the rice, then that's very good. Or grow rice using rain-fed agriculture. So therefore, because of the good climate here and the culture of the people, we can cooperate very easily on growing of crops. Cassava, maize, potatoes, fruits. You should eat those fruits of Uganda. They are very good. Once I went to Washington, and they brought something they call pineapple from Hawaii. Oh, I put it in the mouth. I could feel the urea, urea, in the mouth. I said, poor these people, I wish they could come to Uganda. And I...